Coming up on this episode of the Mario Rosenstock Podcast.
I mean, it was a brilliant picture. And he had a ridiculous hat on.
Yeah.
And all this sort of stuff, and Happy New Year on it, okay? But Daniel Kinahan sent his hitmen to kill him on New Year's Eve.
Okay.
And that's a message.
I'm here.
That not everybody gets, but I get that. It was a subliminal message.
Yeah.
I'm still here.
Yeah. Wow.
You know?
Interesting.
They're always about 2 steps ahead of you.
Well, as far as careers go, let's face it, being a crime journalist is up there with one of the most, let's say, interesting out there. You're constantly dealing with dangerous people that do terrible things. And not only that, your job is to make as many people as possible aware of those people and the awful crimes that they commit. I mean, who'd want a job like that? I have an answer for that. Nicola Tallant would. Nicola is, of course, one of Ireland's best-known crime journalists. After years writing about crime, she then started talking about it on a podcast she created called Crime World, which is now one of the most listened to podcasts in the country. She also does live stage shows, writes a book every year and regularly appears in the media. But why? What is it about this macabre subject that fascinates Nicola? Well, that's what this episode of the Mario Rosenstock Podcast is all about. Nicola reveals why she chose this career in crime and is so ambitious about continuing it and growing it. She also talks openly and honestly about those characters we all seem to find compelling, like Christy and Daniel Kinihan, Gerry the Monk Hutch and Conor McGregor. You do not want to miss this one.
So you're in a courtroom and there's this sort of famous criminal, I suppose, John Gilligan, but you're within touching distance of him. You have this front seat at this arena that everybody else gets to listen to. Sports journalists will say that to you, that, you know, they get the seats, they get the best seats at these things. And it's a similar kind of a thing. Most people kind of come from situations where there is no parenting or problems and trauma, addiction. They might be living in areas where everything is surrounding them. They might be the kids that are left out in the street at night that nobody's roaring for them to come in. There mightn't be anywhere for them to go into. And they want to be part of something. Some of them are extremely bright. You just have to look at the top of the tree at those Kinahans and realise that they are now dealing with the Iranian regime and Putin, and they are moving drugs for them and mixing with royalty in the United Arab Emirates. That is extraordinary. Like, we do have to take a minute and go, how did they make their way up that ladder into the arena of global politics?
So, thank you, Nicola. Maybe I should appear on Crime World the next time, the Minister for Finance. I've committed some very grievous crimes with the budget 2024. That was horrific. I robbed everybody blind. I practically went up and took the wallets out of their pockets. So, I'm ready to confess.
My full chat with Nicola Tallant coming up in just a few minutes' time. But let's face it, the story of the week has to be the ongoing fallout as we all bask in the glow of Rory McIlroy's amazing man-of-the-moment performance in Augusta, winning the Augusta Masters and completing the Grand Slam, the only ever Irish golfer to do so, and only the 6th golfer in history to do so. What a performance. As you'd expect, his phone has been hopping, and people from all over the world are leaving him messages of congrats.
Yeah, hi, you've reached Rory McIlroy, Masters Champion 2025. Oh, God. It started again. Just leave a message. I'm so happy. How are you, Rory? It's Bertie Ahern here. Listen, a fantastic performance in the golf at Augusta there. I haven't seen crying like that since I did that interview with Brian Dobson on RTE1. By the way, if anyone asks, they might have a thing coming up about the presidency, but I put €47,000 on you to win. That's where I'm after getting a few quid recently, if they're asking. just back me up on that one. Thanks, Rory. Nice one. Rory, Brendan O'Connor here. Listen, you're an absolute legend, but I'd love to give you a full hour of the show this Saturday. I know you've been talking so much about how great the performance was, but you almost did, choke. You really did nearly mess it up, which would have been horrifying. I'm interested in exploring the horror of what it could have been like had you just completely ruined your life again. I mean, how bad could it have got? Would we be looking at certifiable sort of depression, maybe electric shock treatment or something, or lifetime of medication, maybe? Get in touch. Rory, this is President Donald J. Trump. Congratulations on a fantastic performance. Amazing, fantastic performance. I had a 63 at Augusta only 2 weeks ago. They said, sir, no president has ever scored 3 hole-in-ones in one round. Amazing. I was incredible. But Rory, from now on, Europe will no longer be able to win the Masters as I am imposing a 100% tariff on European golfing scores, meaning any player from Europe, Asia, or China. China, we like China. They're smart. They're smart, and we like smart. But the tariffs are going on their golf. Every golfer that is not American will start at 11 over par. Thank you for your attention in this matter, Rory.
Rory, Keiki Welsu, this is Mary Lou MacDonald on show. I wanted to congratulate you, but also to ask you if you would deliver the keynote speech at the Sinn Féin Ardèche. We're up 7 points in the latest poll, and I think you could be the secret to unlocking a united Ireland in the future, bearing in mind what you have done. Give us a call, Cogardicus, August, whatever they say. Good luck.
An exclusive comedy every week, of course, on the Mario Rosenstock podcast. I love doing the voicemails. And I'm delighted to announce, of course, that we are in partnership with our fantastic new sponsor. They are Deluxe Bathrooms. And I'm delighted to announce that the Deluxe Bathrooms Easter Extravaganza sale is now on, and you can save up to 65% off luxury bathrooms and premium tiles between now and Sunday, 27th of April. At midnight. And Deluxe Bathrooms have an amazing spend and save offer where you will save an extra €100 for the first €1,500 plus spent, and then save €200 for 2,000 spent, €300 for 3,000, and so on up the list. There is no limit. And of course, thank you to the amazing people at Deluxe Bathrooms for not only taking an interest in podcasting in general, but our podcast specifically, the Mario Rosenstock Podcast. And we look forward to continuing our partnership with them. They really are a great outfit, folks. And if you're looking for a new bathroom, making your dreams come true regarding bathrooms and vanity units, bathrooms, toilets, all those sort of things, tiling, call into deluxebathrooms.ie, Little Island, Cork, and Dundalk Retail Park, of course. Okay, it's time to cross straight over to the GoLoud studios and meet my special guest on this episode, Nicola Tallant. She of the Sunday World, the Crime World podcast, The Witness, in his own words, podcast, several books and live shows, and so much more. But with all that going on, she managed to find time to come and see me at my recent live show at the 3 Arena. I even did an impression of her.
The last time I saw you, you were at my show.
Amazing. It was so good. I was so blown away that like that venue, you must have just been...
The 3 Arena.
Yeah, I just saw you coming out on the stage at the end of it, and you were just taking it all in.
I was.
Because it doesn't happen every time you stand on a stage, is it, that you sell out that big and that sort of a venue.
Wasn't it a great atmosphere?
Oh, it was brilliant atmosphere, yeah. And I was having a good look at the crowd. I was just wondering who goes. All ages, people who grew up with you, people who are new.
Yeah, that's right. They were all
good
ages.
Mix, yeah. Good mix.
Monk was in the third row from the back.
Yeah, he was with me. Yeah. He came as my plus one.
Daniel
no, he
Kinihan
didn't, by the way.
Just up in the gods.
He was in the gods, right? Yeah, ready.
All the top criminals were at my show.
But yeah, it was nice. There was families there, couples, and then just kind of people out for the night and everything. Good mix, yeah.
And I did you as well, didn't I?
Yes, you did. I wasn't expecting that, yeah. I was like, God, am I talking?
I knew you were there. Because you've got a well-to-do voice. So it reminds me a little bit of, imagine if Joanne McNally just talked about murders the whole time instead of funny.
It's that South Dublin thing, which people find very irritating, don't they?
Yeah, some people do. Like I remember Joanne McNally, right? I used to love listening to her voice because when she started as a comedian, because I remember thinking she's really owning this. She owns this posh voice.
Yeah,
you know, to the extent that she just totally overdoes it. Like,
and then a couple of curses in the middle of it work.
Yeah.
The accent, don't they?
Yeah.
Then some people say I sound like Mary Lou MacDonald as well. She has that same boring sort of.
No,
does she not?
No.
Okay, we're still friends.
No, I know what you're saying. She has a kind of Holy Child voice, all right. The nuns.
Holy Child West Dublin, maybe.
Yeah. But no, you just have a kind of a well brought up sort of voice. And come here, listen. I mean, I'll make this more of a profile piece in a way, right? I mean, like, I never asked you how you got into all this sort of stuff. Like, was it journalism that got you in?
Do you mean podcasting and all that sort of stuff?
I meant
the crime.
I meant crime.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such like a niche and unusual thing. I mean, for years I was doing Paul Williams on the radio, and I had him on the podcast as well, and all his nicknames, Viper Tosser and all this. And I used to make up nicknames for people like the Librarian and stuff, really innocent little nicknames for people. But like, how do you get into crime?
You kind of are in the office one day and you're sent on a story, like when back in the day when you were young and you used to be sent out of offices. Nowadays, most of them are sitting on, computers and rewriting stuff maybe and all the rest. But we were always out. When I was younger, we were always sent out on whatever was happening, physically sent.
This is what Jumbo Cairns was telling me.
Do you know what? It was him.
Was it?
Him. I worked
for
with
people
him.
who want to listen back. Jumbo is a legend.
Character,
Jumbo is a legend in journalistic circles, and he told me all about this and being sent out, and that's the way journalism used to be. And you learn your trade being sent out. Yeah,
you do. And actually, I was working with him in the Mirror at the time, and those Gilligan trials were on. Mm-hmm. So they were the big story of the day, and I was sort of sent down to them very green and not knowing really huge amount about it all, but it was exciting. And then I suppose. Yeah, I suppose I was a news reporter, but then you start doing crime and you get sort of pushed into that arena because you know a little bit about it. And then because I found it interesting, maybe I didn't bulk and look to go to the sort of other areas.
Yeah, you say you found it, like you used the word exciting there. Let's go deeper into that. Like you knew that something was going on inside your head, inside your body, even when you were tuning into this. It excited you. It made something work within you, didn't it?
Yeah, I was just interested in it. I mean, initially sort of almost voyeuristically, I think you could say, because I didn't
like a lot of people are
understand the fabric around it and what was happening really to get people. So you're in a courtroom and there's this sort of famous criminal, I suppose, John Gilligan, but you're within touching distance of him. You have this front seat at this arena that everybody else gets to listen to. Sports journalists will say that to you. That, they get the seats, they get the best seats at these things. And it's a similar kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. So you're there for these moments, these big moments. And also then outside of court, we used to be sent a lot around the country. If there was a murder, you'd actually be in your car going down to try and gather bits. And before really you could send a photograph electronically, you had to get a photograph in somebody's kitchen, sit and have tea and wait until the biscuit tin came down and these photographs of maybe a victim came out. And it was a very sort of good training ground to learn how to communicate with people in pretty bad circumstances, and then you'd have to drive back with the photograph and write the story around a victim and whatever. So all of this kind of stuff then I just found pretty fascinating. Sometimes you'd be sent out to speak to the homeless population, to kind of, keep an eye on some street dealing, all of this. And as I went on with it and continued on with it, I think I started to understand the fabric around it, what created this, that these people weren't just to be spied upon and, photographed, from the back of a surveillance van. They had a story. There was a reason they were there and that I wasn't. Because any of us could be in their shoes, really. I believe now at this stage that it's really just the look of birth and your parents, really, and your education, and certain things happen in your life that send you the right direction rather than the wrong. But bring yourself back to your teenage years when you knew it all. And if you're in a different environment, I certainly think I might have gone for the flashy life, to be honest with you.
So in other words, even yourself it could have happened to?
Indeed.
Because of the kind of the excitement of it?
Yeah, I think so. I think
living on the edge.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So in a way, legally, you are living legally on the edge,
maybe.
Covering these, but from just slightly the other side.
Slightly the other side. And maybe now, I suppose, with the advantage of age, with a little bit more of an understanding of it. So when I do speak about it, I like to hope that I am not judgmental and I'm sort of, delving a little bit into society and the reason that these people end up,
You find it exciting. I'm sticking on this for a minute, right? You find it exciting. It does something. It works with you in your personality. Is that reflected in any other area of your personality? So, for example, you can take the question for what it is. But for example, have you ever found you really like a flutter? For example.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you do?
Oh, God, yeah.
So that would tally as well.
Yeah, and I would also tend to be somebody that I sort of would dive in. I wouldn't think about things. I don't overthink anything. If a kind of a scenario comes up, do you want to do this? And it might be something slightly I'll go for it.
Impulsive.
And I'll work. Yes, very much so.
And willfully impulsive. You know you're being impulsive.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not just being kind of reckless. It's just like, you're doing this.
But I'd be disappointed with myself if I didn't say yes to things.
Give me an
If I said
example
no.
of the type of thing that you'd easily say yes to on a regular basis.
Oh.
A friend of yours goes, will we just feck off to Belgium for the weekend?
Oh, for sure. That kind of thing. Absolutely.
Belgium, I've never been there. Great, let's do it.
Belgium doesn't sound too exciting. We could have found maybe somewhere a little bit more edgy, maybe Vegas or something. But yes, I'm always sort of up for things.
Right.
And I'm always sort of...
Have you ever got married in a Vegas shop?
No, not quite. No,
But it sounds
not
like you
quite,
nearly
but it sounds like I could. It sounds like something. Your life's not over yet.
Brittany Tallant. Shotgun weddings. She shaved her head. Would you shave your head?
Maybe not. No, not now. I might have at another period of my life when it would grow back quicker. But I would be very impulsive like that, and it would just be for the laugh and to maybe set the photograph, and then you might kind of regret things afterwards. And
Have you ever regretted being impulsive?
I don't think I have. I think I would have always regretted had I not gone and tried it and done it, and but then sometimes, and maybe it's an Irish thing, saying yes, you have to learn how to say no as well, don't you? Because sometimes then you overwhelm yourself with the amount of things you're doing, and things go a little bit out of control, and you find yourself spreading yourself a little bit too thin. Like a lot of the stuff I've done in recent years has been outside of the journalism I came up with. Who would have ever thought crime journalism would become a live stage show and that kind of thing? Mine on a much smaller basis than yours, and your career was always bringing you that way anyway. But it was the last thing you'd expect to put on a stage and to try and entertain people and to give them a night out and make them laugh, and that sort of opportunity.
And interesting, you say making people laugh, because in fact you can make people laugh with this subject.
And that's
dark.
But that's what you have to do. People don't come out to go home in tears. No. They come out for maybe learn a little bit, have a little bit of entertainment, and just be a little bit interested. But
anything with such dark edges to it is only very close to the humour anyway.
For sure. And
we're all dark. The whole crime thing, right, is a tsunami in podcasting, literature, TV. I mean, I suppose murder and crime was always part of the cinema genre. But now it's taken over podcasting, and you're kind of at the forefront, the apex of this thing. I mean, you're so well known for what you do. You interview all the the top criminals. It's like as if they're pop stars. It's like, you interview all the top criminals, and you have the live shows and everything. So, like, what is it about crime, do you think, that makes people that monetizes it? Why is crime so sellable? Why is it so sellable?
Look, usually criminals are pretty interesting individuals with pretty interesting stories. They've had pretty interesting experiences. They haven't sat in an office, behind a screen, and they've really experienced life in a way, and they do have a lot to say. There's different sort of types of crime. You talk about the podcast and all that, and particularly in the podcast arena, there's a huge amount of influencer type people who are interested in crime and who have podcasts where they tell stories about crime, but they don't have any intimacy with it. And they're doing well, and there's a whole amount of people that are interested in the stories of serial killers who don't really exist anymore. But they're still interested in that, and they're interested in these sort of unsolved cases that are pretty fascinating. They're all a rarity. The stuff I do is more the real stuff. It's like, what is actually happening out there, and your greater risk is probably, to get burgled than to be killed by a stranger. But that sort of stuff is still fascinating, and there's a huge amount of content around that. I don't know. The crime world stuff is almost like nearly a news show. Like, we follow some of the breaking stories. We follow some of the trials that are of interest to people. We can really see, like I'm sure you can see what's interesting people. And if you see it, because we see the figures all the time in real time, there's actually like screens all over our newsroom showing what everyone is watching and what they're looking at. And so we always said as a media, we were sort of serving the people what they want. Now we actually are, because we can see what they want. I would do about 10 podcasts a week. I can see the the stories, the characters, the individuals that they really are interested in, because the figures go up. As basic as that. And then I would tell sort of more longer form stories over 10 parts. You know, some of them are cold case murders, some of them are gangland hits, and you get really down into the weeds of those stories and who's who and who are the characters around it, what has happened, what are the chances of solving it.
Is one of the one of the things that came across what you said there is there's a societal element to what's going on with you. So rather than somebody being obsessed with Ted Bundy, the serial killer, which may be a person who is voyeuristically interested in that particular weird person. You're interested in the whole panoply of characters which are in a milieu, a place, a socioeconomic thing. There's a sliding doors moment, as you talked about. Why did that person become? So you're interested in that whole thing, isn't that right?
Yes, which is a little bit more, it's more kind of looking at where society sits within this as well, and where areas of Dublin and where deprivation and all those other elements come into it. And I like to delve back rather than just give someone a nickname and call them a baddie. I like to delve back into why they became that. And there are some really fascinating, sad stories about why people become and why they're standing
when
there.
When you say fascinating and sad, give me one who stands out in your mind.
Yeah, well, there's a brother and sister currently in jail, and they've been convicted, and they're both Redmond, Rue Redmond and sister Rachel, for different offences. Rue Redmond in particular for a murder. He's had a long history in gangland. But they have another brother called Gerry Redmond, who was also involved in criminality, but while in prison and after he had a child, had a road to Damascus moment, essentially, and is now a very intriguing, interesting, amazing character that's giving back to the community. And he works with kids and he tries to direct them away from it. But when you go back to their childhood, you see a very, very dysfunctional home where their own father committed a crime, an arson attack, which resulted in the killing of a young baby, and he was put away in jail for manslaughter. Gerry Redmond, the older brother, was actually on a trajectory to a fantastic football career at the time. He'd been picked to go to Scotland, and he was, he had a career basically, possibly in the Premiership. And because of that incident, he had to come back and try and rear 4 young siblings and feed them. And something there was missed by social services, by education, by the state. And, this child is trying to rear children. He turns to crime to feed them, and because it's all around him, he does get out of that and come back and give back to the community. But the brother and sister are now in jail. I think that's a really sad story. Very tough childhood. Not to take from the victims that are there within their stories, but it's a really tough childhood. And I wonder, would I be Gerry or would I be Rachel or Rue? Would I have the strength of character to come back from that and to have that moment and give back?
Yeah. What about, just on that point, do you think from what your experience has seen that criminals are created by their environment? And if they are created by the environment, is it at a young age especially? So, and is it to do with abuse?
I think most of them, there is a kind of a few, and actually, funny enough, Christy Kinahan Senior,
Yeah.
He's actually the cuckoo in the nest because he's from a middle class family. Yeah. He's educated, he's everything.
That's fascinating.
And he chooses it. He actually goes out and finds it and chooses it. But most people kind of come from situations where there is no parenting or problems and trauma, addiction. They might be living in areas where everything is surrounding them. They might be the kids that are left out in the street at night that nobody's roaring for them to come in. There mightn't be anywhere for them to go into, or it might be going into more troubled environment than they find in the streets, and they want to be part of something and they become part of a gang. Now, lots of people also grow up in that environment.
When you say part of a gang, is that them finding a family?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. They're finding safety, they're finding a place.
And an identity.
An identity. And you think back as a teenager, that's really what teenage life is about, finding an identity outside your home. But loads of people then at the same time will grow up in that environment and they won't go into that. They'll manage to manoeuvre their way out, and maybe they have a skill set that others don't. But we have left those communities become that, through, I suppose all we've tried to do is police it, put people in jail, and the same funds haven't gone into those community groups that take longer and take, more money really to steer a kid the right way. And look, some of them, like all human beings are different, and some of them will maybe go the wrong way anyway, no matter what you throw at them. But I think more people could be saved if there was interventions there younger. And I really dislike when people who have all the education and everything and have had that, and that they judge, and just think it's just because they're bad.
Yes. Yeah, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about bad. I mean, it's not easy even to categorise, but for the purposes of simplifying the argument, maybe we'll attempt to. So, are there people, have you seen evidence that there are people who are not bad but become bad, right? Then there are people who are just bad and follow through on being bad.
You do see that, but do you not think we see evidence of that in normal society as well? I mean, there's some bad people you meet and they're just bad.
Yeah, I do.
Troublemakers, and they're just nasty, and they're doing things they mightn't ever be caught, committing a crime, but they are.
They're doing them.
They're doing them.
Yeah.
And I mean, the ones that really sort of creep me out are definitely the paedophiles. I mean, there's something about them that I think people who work with them can always say, they can nearly tell them when they walk into a room. There's something there. There's some sort of it's shocking what they do, and you don't even want to. You want to go home and wash when you're near them. It's just so unforgivable, and that's in them. That's not something that's usually created.
Yeah, one of the things I find about from the reports I've read to do with paedophilia is that a lot of paedophiles completely, absolutely know what they're doing. And they seem to be almost rational and sane. Mm-hmm. So they don't fall into this, he had nothing to live for, fucking psychopath Tony Montana, and fucking I'm going down, so I might as well take the whole boom, 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 boom world with me. There's nothing to do with that.
No.
It's like rational. They know what it is, and they actually, that's pretty as close to, suppose, evil as you can think.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty, I mean, I remember being called into this particular individual who had been accused, and he was living, a lot of paedophiles hoard things, and like as you come to the door, there's something, they hoard cars, they hoard dirty things, they hoard magazines, they hoard, I'm not saying all hoarders, by the way, are paedophiles, but a lot of them have that. And I happened to be in this house and I didn't know where to sit. I was like, oh God, and started asking this man about some of the allegations that I was putting to him, and I was talking to him about having sex with children, and he said, but lots of people have that hobby. So he had sort of like, he was trying to deny everything, and then he came out with that as a defence. And I said, but lots of people wouldn't call that a hobby. In fact, most people wouldn't call that a hobby. And they just, there's something wrong about them. They're so outside what you expect a human being to be like. And they're a completely different breed, really, of predator than what I usually, thankfully.
What about your own soul when you alluded to a minute ago about feeling dirty sometimes? You feel you need to go home and wash when you're with some of that kind of person. I just wonder how that rubs off on you, just generally the idea of constantly being in the arena of people who are transgressing the law and hurting other people. You've thought of that, presumably? Yeah,
and also being with victims who have been through horrendous things and having to sit down and listen and see some of the results of the stuff. And
do you ever feel trauma on their behalf?
I think you build a resilience, and there is a resilience, and I think it's not only like crime journalists. I think people like, I was thinking, counsellors. How do counsellors and social workers do it?
Correct.
How do they do it?
I know.
People working in the ambulance services and the hospitals, we're seeing all that. Police. So you build this, or you have this resilience. Say you have to have it. So you have to have resilience, and that works for you because you're able to deal with this stuff and whatever you're doing with it. I'm only trying to sort of be a conduit to tell it on. But that resilience then, I think, can sometimes affect the way you deal with people in your personal life, because you maybe have less empathy if they're not as resilient, and you have to kind of check yourself. And
I understand what you're saying. So
you have to be a little bit more realistic that not everybody's as resilient.
I'll be slightly trite here, but I'm trying to think of an example. And one of them was I was watching The Jackal, right? The Day of the Jackal, the recent series, which was really well produced and everything. But the black girl in it, the police officer, she was very interesting because she was dealing with like out there murderers and everything. She was following the Jackal, but then she'd come home to her husband, right, and the kids, and she'd be cold because she's completely switched on, and he'd be there like saying, you know, you haven't seen our daughter in 3 days, and she's doing her leaving, like her GCSEs, and she's then, oh shit, sorry, and then she tries to go into empathy mode, but it doesn't come naturally to her.
Yeah, it's
because she's toughened up. She's got this shell that she's developed.
And I think you have that with yourself as well, because you don't. I suppose resilience stops you processing things, right? So then, if you stop processing things and then you just screw that up, you're not able for that. Now, if you don't have any resilience, you end up probably in treatment in a hospital. Do you know what I mean? So resilience is usually good. It's probably most of it is good, but some of it then is you have to have a little bit of kindness towards yourself and others. And you know, I mean, I have to stop myself. I'm sure my kids say that I'm constantly telling them about. They actually do impressions of me. You'd love it. They're sitting at breakfast and there's no milk or something, and then I go, do you not know what's happening in Ukraine? Like, you know what I mean? I sort of always bring things to that level of ridiculousness almost, and you know, you
go into sixth gear.
Yeah, because it's like you have this feeling like, do you not know how privileged you are? And but I feel that more for myself. I think that you feel you can't, I don't know, process a lot of things probably.
Well, it was interesting to somebody in your position who go, I would wonder sometimes, do you feel it hard to open up to somebody and to be vulnerable with people on the basis that your inner brain is telling me, what kind of a fucking psycho am I dealing with here potentially?
Well, there's definitely a bit of that, because like, you know, in what I do, if you show weakness, that's the worst thing you can do. You can never show weakness. You have to just constantly keep looking at them in the eye, and because criminals always try and threaten you and undermine you, and they try and get at you, and they try and claim to know little things about you, which they just don't.
Are criminals intelligent?
Oh, mostly. You know, any of them who are successful. Probably the ones who are.
So, like any area, they've risen to the top. They demonstrate intelligence.
Oh, they have a brain, and they can work systems, and they can.
Are some of them very bright?
Some of them are extremely bright.
Who do you think is bright that names that we might know?
Well, I mean, you just have to look at the top of the tree at those kinihans and realise that they are now dealing with the Iranian regime and Putin, and they are moving drugs for them, and they are, you know, they're working. They're in trouble with the Americans because of they've been helping fund Hezbollah essentially. How do they get from Oliver Bond to mixing with that and with royalty in the United Arab Emirates? That is extraordinary. Like, we do have to take a minute and go, how did they do that? How did they make their way up that ladder into the arena of politics, of world global politics?
So I suppose how I'm asking you then, are you, and I'm trying to maybe guess then, you do it by, well, you must demonstrate enormous cunning. You must surely demonstrate the ability to think strategically as well, though.
But I mean, they've languages. I mean, I couldn't have a little bit of French. They might have 8 languages. They've learned about the world. They haven't just stayed in their own little lane. They have learned that they're better than that in a way, and they've gone out and they have trotted the world, and they have realised where the weaknesses in countries that I hardly know exist are. And that's extraordinary. And I suppose if they had gone into legitimate business, they would be the likes of the Microsoft heads. These kind of, so yes, they are very intelligent. Yeah. They're just working in a parallel universe.
Yeah.
And,
yes.
But like there's only a finite amount of people in the world get to that position, top of the tree. But mostly they will be sort of scammers, fraudsters, this kind of thing. But they'll also, if they want to deal with you, because a lot of it is they're having a bit of fun, and they will always try and suggest they know where you live, or they know this or the other. So you just have to be completely, you know, show no weakness.
When you say show no weakness,
well, I mean,
you must almost feel no weakness.
Hold your ground. I don't know what you'd call it. Yeah. And you learn how to do that. So then does that kind of go into probably, you know, when I meet people first, I'm probably a little bit standoffish and trying to work out. Are they actually some sort of a psychopath? Or are they okay?
I know.
I should have a list of things.
Trying to have a couple of drinks on the street with you at Christmas is a bloody nightmare. I mean, my defences are down, Nicola. You know, and you're there. I'm just working you out. Right, you might be on your third gin and tonic, but I've got you figured out, Rosenstock. Yeah, there you are, looking all sort of cheery and smiley and cute in South Dan Street. But why are you here really, Rosenstock? Just for my listeners, we had a few drinks together at Christmas and we met some people, and I bumped into Nicola during the evening and we had a great royal time of it. We had a really good, we were all on good Christmas cheer.
Absolutely.
And I was taking the piss out of people and you were in good top form as well. But
we were kind of running the crowd for a while there in Coes, I think.
We were, yeah. We were putting on a mini podcast. People were gathering around. It was a little mini podcast. That was funny. Interesting. So a couple of other, like the Kinahans, you said the Daniel Kinahan there, that he's a fascinating character. Is he more, is he of Christy, or is he even beyond Christy? Is he like, you know, completely outdoing his father?
Or is he trying to? I don't know.
Or is he trying to?
Maybe.
Do they have a relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah. Father-son relationship?
Yeah, and, you know, funny, there's some creepy little things that you hear, but people who would know him would always say he's sort of baby-like to the father on the phone and stuff, and yet, you know, he's ordering murders like they're pizzas. Peculiar character. The father is a peculiar character, and he is too.
Is the father alive?
Yeah.
80s, 90s?
No, he would be only in his 60s now.
Oh, so really?
Yeah,
so he obviously had the son very young.
He had them, they're 40s, you see. They feel like they're around forever, don't they? So yeah, he's in his 60s, but still very much, you know, and resolved to, up until recently, take over the shipping routes of, you know, the world. Like, I mean, the ambition knows no end. You know, buying planes from the Israelis and moving cocaine up through Africa during COVID in air ambulances and things like this. The brain never stops. Highly intelligent. He is supposed to have been a member of Mensa, the father. Daniel Kinahan, for me, when you look at his achievements, I look at Tyson Fury. I knew nothing about boxing at all, I can tell you, from South County Dublin. It wouldn't be a sport I would have known anything about, but it is an amazing sport and very interesting. I only know about it through my crime work, but he did take Tyson Fury from the scrap heap, and he, you know, brought him back to become the heavyweight champion of the world, which is an extraordinary thing to do. Even though the accusation is in the background he was using, you know, his influence and probably dirty money to make things happen. But even without that, to have done that, to have had that one achievement in life, and it's never enough. There's never enough. So no matter how intelligent people are, I always envy people in life who are satisfied with their lot. I think that is happiness. When people are just satisfied. They mightn't have a huge amount, but they're satisfied in their home, with their partner, with their kids, with everything around them. They don't constantly strive for more, because that's an irritant when you're like that. You can never just totally relax when you're constantly striving for more. And, you know, it's illogical. What are you striving for when you have really everything that matters at the end of the day?
I see it slightly differently. I mean, I do understand exactly what you're saying, but I think there's more to striving for more than striving for more material gain. I think there is striving because you want to deliver. Like, I'm not a religious person at all, but I do have a kind of I do have a spiritual belief in the idea of be thankful for the talent you were given and honour it. Honour it.
Have you always felt that, or is that more?
It's something that's grown in me. This idea that it's a sense of privilege, luck that I feel I've been given, and I see people who are laughing at things that I do, and I feel so gifted and blessed that I can do it. And then I feel I've got to deliver on this. I've got to keep working on my talent to almost honour the fact. Don't let it lie fallow. Keep at it, like more. Not for more money or for more fame or adulation. It's definitely to keep honouring the thing that you have been lucky enough to be given, because so many people are just so I mean, you said it there a minute ago, Ukraine, and the vast majority of people don't even have fresh water to drink, and I have this thing that I've been given to make people happy and laugh. Honour it.
I get that.
It's like that thing, and did you ever see Chariots of Fire? And the guy who was very religious, and he said God gave him speed, and he must honour God. He must honour God. And deliver on it. But anyway, it's an interesting.
And haven't you look if you found what you're good at early on?
Fluke, total fluke.
That is a kind of a very, you
You're
see
lucky.
people who are still
Yeah.
in careers going, I don't really know what I want to do.
Well, you said people who are satisfied. There are a lot of people who settle for things and they appear satisfied. But they're the people I worry about, because they're the people that later in life, a lot of the resentment surfaces.
Maybe, yeah.
And, you go, oh, right, so I have no relationship with the kids and I broke up with the wife when I was there. And why? Well, because there was something there the whole time that you never itched the scratch. You never scratched the itch, But anyways, I broadly understand what you're saying. I'm fascinated by this, now that we're on the Kinihans thing. So the father is still working away. The son is trying to emulate maybe the father and go beyond him. He's an international player of Ronaldo or Messi-like levels. He's sanctioned by the Americans. He's doing business with the Iranians and the Putin and the Russians, running drugs all over the world. Do you know where he is?
He's in Dubai.
Yeah. And what do the Dubai authorities...
Well,
they know where he is.
Yeah, this is where it gets complex, because we're putting together a file. The Americans obviously have a bounty on his head. The Emirates are playing a political game. They're signing sort of treaties and they're saying, oh yes, we'll hand once the paperwork is there. But it's a long time happening now. All these things that are a long time happening end very quickly and swiftly. I mean, I've seen it before, these people that are untouchable and, within a few days they're behind bars and that's where they're staying and it's all over for them. But it feels like certainly this political games. I do know that Daniel Kinahan has a very good friend who's one of these sort of bratty younger royals, and he probably got into mixing with him through the boxing. I think their connections with that part of the world started way back around the early 2000s when they were on the racetracks in the UK, a kind of period forgotten nearly. They were dipping in to try and see how much money they could launder through horse racing, which is a brilliant way of laundering money. And there's a lot of very rich people that own horses and that are mixing and mingling in that world. And I think they made strong connections there. They have some protections. At the same time, there's very few people who appear on a wanted poster, for the DEA, for the US Treasury, who actually live out to see the retirement. They look untouchable until they're not.
Yeah.
And, cops would always say to you, the criminals have to be lucky every day.
Yep.
We just have to be lucky once.
Correct.
And it's a kind of a little thing that come out.
Do you think he moves around between Russia and Japan?
No,
Russia
I think he stayed in the Emirates. I think he's afraid to move. I think he's protected somewhat there. And, what would life be like? I mean, I certainly wouldn't sleep straight in bed at night waiting for any day or when will they come for me? Will they not? He has a confidence. He has gone to ground with the social media stuff. He did pop up really heavily in around 22 after Tyson Fury.
Yeah. He was on social media.
Yes. And he was being photographed. He was being spoken about. He actually made a big long podcast with a guy called James English in the UK, which has never seen the light of day. There's
Never?
only a trailer. No, it never got out. It was 3 hours.
Huh.
Have you ever been allowed to do 3 hours in a podcast?
You would be, but...
I wouldn't. They'd edit me. They'd chop me down.
Well, we edit ourselves.
Yeah.
Here. Well, I would edit myself. Patrick would edit it.
Patrick would tell you to wrap it up if it went on for 3 hours.
Oh, well, he'd let me do 3 hours with you and then...
He'd wrap it up.
Well, he'd possibly go, I thought that was so interesting, we'll do it in 3 episodes.
Yeah, well...
Joe Rogan does 3-hour podcasts with Elon Musk and people like that, and anybody.
Anyway, he's done that and it's sitting somewhere on the cutting floor, I don't know. But he was very much coming out, and then the sanctions, he's gone back to ground.
Jumping completely. Have you had any interest in covering Conor McGregor?
Well, Conor McGregor sits in a kind of a complex position because obviously we covered the trial, the civil trial. He's appealed that now and waiting decision on what's going to happen with that. He floats beside a lot of people that we're talking about. He knows a lot of the kind of the Kinahan cartel from growing up with them. And a lot of them were involved in boxing, which, you know, in that kind of industry, they love going, they always went to the Conor McGregor fights and all the rest of it. And he would have been photographed with them and that. But there's, as we have to constantly remind ourselves and say, to keep ourselves clean, he's no involvement in organised crime. He just knows these people and he's floating around with them and he doesn't mind hanging out with them. He's moving into an arena now that is very political and far right, and you kind of I don't try and avoid it if I have to cover it, but it just results in such a pile on. And I mean,
do you find him an interesting character, or is he in your world, or not so much?
I personally, I don't. I find him quite abhorrent, to be honest with you.
No, I didn't mean that.
He makes my lip curl, and
yeah, but so do a lot of these people.
Yeah.
So do a lot of people you have to deal with.
But I suppose he's coming onto my radar as somebody on the periphery
That's
of it.
right.
He's not actually doing anything that's illegal. He's making his money legally. He's mixing with interesting people, I suppose. So I have the same attitude to him probably that a normal, you know, anybody would have.
Yes.
He's done a big interview that'll be probably out by this time.
Tucker Carlson, yeah.
Tucker Carlson. I'll probably tune in to listen to what he has to say and just, you know, curl my lip at it. But yeah, he's moving into strange arena, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. And definitely there's going to be a reduction in sales of those cloth caps.
Has he disconnected from reality? And that does happen, funny enough, to a lot of people that live in that world where they're completely surrounded. They've too much money, really.
My opinion? Utterly, completely divorced from reality.
Yeah, I think so too.
So he hasn't a clue what's going on.
And those around him as well.
Yeah, but it's the same as Trump in the sense of it's the yes people.
It's totally
people who won't say no to you.
Yeah. And, you know, anyway, he's not a proud son of this city, maybe, is he? And yet he wants to.
Yeah, it's a pity because he could have been Muhammad Ali.
He could have been somebody that we would have.
Well, I remember when he first emerged on the scene, I mean, he used to talk about, I never have a drink, that kind of, you know, that voice, that thing. I don't have a drink, I'm clean, I'm pure, Buddhist, the Buddhist mentality. I am only in the...
Did he always talk as if he was from a foreign country and was speaking English?
No, that's a Dublin thing. That's a Dublin thing. That thing of it's almost a trade union thing of I have educated myself into the institutionalisation and colonialisation of you, and I pronounce my INGs.
Yes,
I am ing. I'm not the normal Dubliner. I don't say in like I'm throwing. I would throwing.
Yes,
you know, because my father was a member of the ITGWU, and I fought for the unions. This thing, you know. But then he does this thing as well, like, hey, nice to meet you, my friend.
What is
it's very
that?
good. Assholes do that. We've all had an asshole friend who's visited fucking Spain for the weekend and he comes back going, hey Ming, what the fuck? And you're there, Tony, you're from Rotten Mines.
Yeah. But he's doing it, it is. He's always
bizarre.
It is bizarre.
Yeah, but he could have been, because he used to talk about how, this is back to 2015, how his body was clean. Yeah. And how he believed in training and almost, like I just said a minute ago, honouring the Lord with the grace with good grace and being good to yourself and honouring your opponent. Respect, because if this is, of course, in real martial arts, you honour your opponent. 4 years later, he's saying dance, boy, dance to Floyd Mayweather in one of the lowest racial, slurs you can do.
Yeah,
he's, you know, throwing chairs at a window at Khabib on a bus. He's
spitting in people's faces. Yeah, no, it's
just disgusting. So something went completely wrong in his life, and that's what happened. So what about The Witness? Tell me about The Witness, because Eamon has been on this podcast before, and I know you're doing with Jane Gogan. Tell me all about that.
So The Witness was a story of redemption in a way. It was a young boy who was groomed into a drug gang very early in his life and had a horrendous time, was forced to go out and sell drugs, deliver drugs, and was abused also by a very dark character called Brian Kenny. And Kenny then commits a murder along with Thomas Hinchin, and he comes back to where he's living with Joey O'Callaghan, and he asks him to go hide the gun, get rid of the motorbike, blow it up, burn the leathers. But Joey escapes, goes to the police and becomes a witness, and his evidence, along with some other evidence, puts these two guys away for life. and he goes into witness protection program, disappears. He's expected to set up a new life and to live as if he never came from Dublin, never had a family, never had friends. He's given a backstory, and he's 19. And it doesn't work out like that. He's too young. He's got no support system. So he sort of came back, and in a bad way. And I met him, actually. And we sort of forged this, what is now a really good, strong friendship. We wrote a book together. We went on to do a podcast, The Witness in His Own Words, which was just Joey talking, really. And I suppose showing people maybe why I believed him, because he's very genuine. He's very articulate at telling a story. And hopefully now that story is going to move into the next medium of film drama, which is very exciting. But for me, it's always been the project that has been I suppose, financial. It's the one that I really was worth doing. It was worth helping Joey tell his story, get it out. I think it's a really valid... I still get an email practically every day from somebody, a teacher or something, saying they've just stumbled upon the podcast or the book, and they really think this should be in the schools, and kids should be, taught this story, told this story, not taught it, but certainly exposed to it maybe. All of this happened quite some time ago, but it's still very relevant in modern society. It's the story of how a child can be lured into a situation and then feel they've no way out. And yet they do find the strength then to become ultimately a man who can become a very strong character and a very strong voice.
And it's going to be made into a film.
But is there
script being written at the moment?
Yeah. It's great to see something get to that place, like I would write books every nearly a year at the moment, but anyway, I'll slow down with that. But you sort of, I'll write the book, but that one I really wanted to tell someone else's story. I wanted him to tell his story. He didn't have the ability to write or to put it together.
Yeah,
I did. Yeah. And I sort of sat in the middle of that thing, and we brought it to life.
And do you like movies about criminals?
Oh my God, yeah.
Do you?
Oh my God. I mean, go to bed at 10 o'clock. I can't. If it starts, and even on... yeah.
Talk to me, because I love movies.
Oh my God, I watch anything.
For example, The Godfather. Is that's...
Yeah, I rewatch that every now and then.
Yeah.
I actually rewatched Love Hate, which is something, if anybody hasn't done that in the last decade or whatever we're talking about, go do it again. It's. I love rewatching The Sopranos, The Wire, some of those things.
Breaking Bad?
Yeah, loved Breaking Bad. So many good series. When we started really being offered these offerings from those streamers, Netflix and stuff.
I would say you love ones which involve double crossing and moles. Like Donnie Brasco, I think, is one.
Love that,
So,
yeah.
Isn't Johnny Depp?
Yes,
Johnny Depp is the mole.
I love really intriguing stuff, but I will also watch some of those crappy kind of documentary things that, of a crime in Scotland where I've never heard it before. I love a lot of the Nordic stuff, the dramas. I pretty much watch absolutely anything, and I'll know in the first 10 minutes if I'm going to get to the end of it. If I like the characters, I mean, I'd say now...
Nicola Tallant says this is class.
Yeah.
So, you're a good reviewer for this.
Yeah.
So, not Dancing with the Stars then?
Not Dancing with the Stars. No.
Unless they're all criminals.
No, I love that.
This week on Dancing, it's Dancing Daniel Kinihan doing the Rumba. And here is the monk with his foxtrot. That would be grass.
He probably would as well.
My God, I think I've just come up with a great sketch.
He'd probably be game for that.
Get out of it, you dirty old bee. Paul Reynolds, get out of it. Paul Reynolds. You buzzing wasp.
Match the two of them.
Yeah. Paul Reynolds dancing with the monk.
With the monk. Now, that would be something, yeah. We'd all tune in for that. So
have you been in touch with the monk recently?
Yeah, be in touch a bit. Yeah, he had an interesting experience, didn't he? Nearly getting into power, or into the Dáil at least, and I sort of...
He did. We had, from my point of view, we had some interesting times as well. We did some sketches on him.
Yeah.
And I kind of... I was a little tricky getting it over the line with the guys.
Yeah.
And I appreciate where my team, the Ian Dempsey and Charlie and my producer.
Right. What, were they worried about him?
No. It was more like, because we hadn't done a sketch on the monk. So basically we were deciding to do a funny sketch on a known criminal.
Right.
All right?
Yeah.
So that means that takes it to a different level. So that means you're making fun, if you like, of a potentially very dangerous person who has been involved in violent crime. And so that was a moment where we all have to kind of decide, well, where do we stand on this? And I guess I would have been pushing to do the sketch on the basis that he's really out there, and now he's in the public arena where the public are voting on him.
Yeah.
And so that brings him into my arena, if you like.
Yeah.
The democracy thing, you know. He's now entered our world, and so we did a few sketches on him, and they went down really well.
And he would totally get that, by the way.
Oh, I understand he would get it.
He enjoys the bit of fun that goes on with
one of the things was he came to the door. Sorry, just two a woman and a husband were at the door. Just they're normal people, and they go, "Oh, Jesus, Gerry, there's a figure at the door." And I said, "Who is it?" I don't know. It's a dodgy looking figure. And they go, "I'll go out to him." And they open the door, and it's the monk, and he's standing there with his polling card going, "How are you doing? I'm the monk." He said, "Yes. I'm just been around the area. I noticed there's things going wrong. Any complaints yourself?" And he said, "Yeah, well, there's a lot of complaints. Yeah, there's problems with gangs around here." And he went, "Gangs? That's dreadful. No, that's awful. It's awful to hear. That's gang, G-A-N-G. Okay, gangs will write that down. Anything else? Well, there's some, people, burglars and stuff." Oh, that's absolutely terrible. Okay, thank you. I appreciate your vote. Goodbye. So shut the door, and they kind of went, "Well, it wasn't too bad." Next thing, there's a wrong on the door. It's Pascal Donoghue, and you go, "Get the fuck out of it, you scumbag criminal, yeah." That was the end of the sketch. In other words, I suppose the motto of the thing was, even Monk was regarded as halfway decent in comparison to the crowd that are in there.
And you've just hit the nail on the head, because that's why he got so many votes. Exactly, that was the attitude. They thought he was better. It was this kind of like, I had an interesting experience with the whole thing, to be honest with you. So he agrees to do the podcast, which is like brilliant, but I'm not telling anyone he's coming into the building, because you can't, I look for forgiveness afterwards. So we bring him in at night time in the basement and up the lifts and everything, and he comes in, and there's very little planning in this done, but he sort of says he'll talk. I wasn't really interested in his politics because I didn't think he had any. I wanted him to tell me firsthand about this Kinihan Hutch feud. I wanted him to tell me about meeting Daniel Kinihan, doing a deal, the double cross, how he was nearly shot in Lanzarote. This was my thing, And of course he did it all. Like he did it all, and we challenged him on various things. You're not going to actually, do a Paul Reynolds on it, are you, in a podcast studio? Because someone's just going to get up and walk out. It's certainly different journalism. You're not doorstepping them and shouting allegations at them. You need them to talk, to create something. And also, he's a really interesting character, and he hasn't sat down and done an interview like this ever. So that was all great. And then we put it out in 3 parts. Yeah, it was one of those. It was worth a few hours. It goes off the scale. Absolutely, like the biggest ever listened to and watched podcast I think ever made in Ireland. Just unbelievable.
Yeah, really.
Figures are mental.
Yeah.
About 1.5 million on YouTube alone.
1.5 million. That's kind of
views on YouTube alone.
But as in that's watching it. That's listening to it and watching it. That's
just watching it. That's before you hit your audio. Figures. So this is off the scale. This thing, And he went out then, and because I think people hadn't really heard him talk like that. And I think people realised, well, maybe they could approach him and could say hello to him. People start kind of greeting him warmly. Now, he's known within a part of the north inner city, but he found that warmth elsewhere. And people waving at him, doing selfies with him, going down the street. It's all gone down very positively for him. And he's clever enough, like his team behind him sort of suggested to him that he didn't do any more interviews because he was up there and shut your mouth, say no more going forward, which was probably a clever political strategy in fairness. So anyway, we go on, and nobody expects him to get anywhere, and then the election, and then the polls are coming in, and by the Saturday night he was, I think, almost a shoo-in.
Yeah.
And Niall, who's my co-host, rings me. Now, I was actually out, and a couple of glasses of wine in, and he had been in the newsroom, and he could feel the tide turning, and a lot of kind of whispers about that podcast, and and he was going, listen, it's looking like you might be getting in. And I'm going, great, no problem, sure, we'll deal with it tomorrow, it'll be grand. So then the next morning I wake up and I'm going, oh my God, he's going to get in. Oh my goodness me, this is going to be, stand your ground here. Because a lot of criticism was coming then about him getting a platform, about, other politicians didn't get the same platform. There was a lot of this kind of, RTE talk shows and all this sort of stuff. And then he didn't get in. But this sort of wave of almost cancellation came after I just had to put my head down, and it was interesting. It was interesting, and there was this kind of like, nobody really wanted to quite say it, but they were going around it. But I mean, you're talking Simon Harris. Everyone who's been interviewed was talking about the platform he got, and of course he only got one platform. Anyway, we rode the wave, and came out.
And ironically, Pascal got in to keep him out. Democracy won at the end of the day. Thank you, Nicola. Maybe I should appear on Crime World the next time, the Minister for Finance. I've committed some very grievous crimes. I swear I have. With the budget 2024, that was horrific. I robbed everybody blind. I pillaged and robbed them. I practically went up and took the wallets out of their pockets. So I'm ready to confess. 717 7214 7321.
Oh yeah, I don't think any of the rest of them would get those figures though, would they?
No, I'm not looking for views. I don't want clicks. I'm a nice criminal. We'd be gassed if you interviewed all the criminals on Crime World, wouldn't it? Crime World.
Come on.
Simon Harris.
Let me say, I'm deeply proud of the crimes I've committed, Nicola Tallant. I've left bodies everywhere, I swear. I have killed people. I'm proud of the killings I have done. I've been a leader of a gang, Fine Gael, are one of the dirtiest, nastiest ringleaders of gangs in town. We're running all sorts of stuff.
Brilliant.
Crime World, the Fine Gael special.
But they all wanted the same platform as he got. So actually, I should open the door. And
You
let
should.
them all come
Well, you
in.
can have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the hell am I going to ask them?
Like apart from the monk, I mean, and the seriousness of it, which it is serious, as any person who's involved in crime, it is serious. He has that thing though that a few of them have, which is charisma. He has a charisma. Dare I say, almost? I'd put it in movie terms, kind of an almost Steve McQueen stillness to him.
But he's also up to something, and even
What do you mean he's up to? I know he's up to something. Jesus Christ. What do you think? I'm stupid? I mean, I think of the understatement of the fucking century. Nicola Tallant has come on my podcast and go, would you not think the monk is maybe up to something? After all your years, and that's all you have left. I'll fuck off, Paul Reynolds. Of course I'm up to something. Have you ever heard of Brinks Allied?
Come with the headline.
Nicola Tallant.
Monk
I
is up
think
to
Monk
something.
may be up to something. That is the best. That is the best. We've just got there, Nicola.
We've got there, yeah. This is what my
Yeah.
whole career was about, to come out with a
my
statement like
God.
that.
That's like me saying, Mario Rosenstock, do you think Flatley might be worth impersonating? Says Rosenstock.
But he's up to something when he's doing that thing, when he's coming on a podcast. He's not just coming on because he's decided it's his moment to talk. He's sending a message.
But that's
He's sending a message
But that
to us.
adds to his aura, as my son,
It
my
does.
17-year-old son would call it. He has aura.
Yeah.
It adds to his aura.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does, but he's actually doing far more than he looks like what he's doing. He's giving an interview and he's saying this and he's saying that, but he's actually taking back his city.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing from the Kinahans. And if you look at the psychology of the whole thing and
Right.
who they went to war with and everything, and even actually on New Year's, he actually sent me a photograph of himself in a silly hat, right? And he sent the photograph. We actually ran it in the paper. There was nothing else on the
He
go.
knows. He knew you'd run it.
Of course he did, and he didn't send it for my personal collection. You know what I mean? We have got a totally.
And let me see. I know what you said when you received the picture. You said, Niall, I think he didn't send this just for my personal collection. Well, bully fucking who, Batman?
He sends it to the investigations editor of the
Yeah.
Sunday World.
Yeah.
Just why?
Yeah.
But we were of course. I mean, it was a brilliant picture, and he had a ridiculous hat on.
Yeah.
There was all this sort of stuff, and Happy New Year on it. Okay, but Daniel Kinahan sent his hitmen to kill him on New Year's Eve.
Okay.
And that's a message
I'm here.
that not everybody gets, but I get that. And that's what he was doing. And I'm actually, you know what? We get a picture of the front page of the newspaper. We are running something as well. And, you know, if Daniel Kinahan probably wanted to send me a photograph, we would have run that as well. But it was a subliminal message.
Yeah.
I'm still here.
Yeah. Wow.
You know?
Interesting.
So that's how the minds, they're always about 2 steps ahead of you. A little bit like an addict who's trying to get you into a corner to hand over a card at a bar or something. You always have to be thinking, you know, I cannot be charmed by this. This is I'm enjoying the company of this person, but he's doing something here. He has a reason. He's not just sitting here talking to me because he thinks I'm okay. You know? So
Interesting.
he's up to something.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew it. It only took us 2 hours to figure that out, and 30 years.
That's class.
The monk is up to something. I knew it. We'll leave it at that, folks. Monk is up to something. Watch this space.
Exclusive.
Exclusive from Nicola Tallant next week in the crime world. She also reveals that so maybe too is Daniel Kinahan. But listen, she's not sure yet. Bye-bye.
And my thanks to Nicola Tallant for coming in to talk to me about her fascinating life in the crime covering business. And good luck to her in her future shows. I know she's in Kilkenny soon, and I intend to go and see one of her shows very soon and repay the compliment of her seeing me in the 3 Arena. And my thanks to you, as always, for listening to this podcast. Please tell one other person if you can. That's all I ask about this podcast. And my thanks, of course, to our great sponsor, deluxebathrooms.ie. Fantastic Easter extravaganza sale now on. There, of course, deluxebathrooms.ie online. And they are in Little Island in Cork and Dundalk Retail Park. And thanks to them for involving themselves with this podcast. Same time, same place next week, folks. Happy Easter. Take care.